Welcome to another episode of The Rabbi and the Therapist. And today we have a really, what I would say, a special guest in our studio that we'll be talking to about some very, very important things within our lifestyle and within our lives. Dr. Yael Respler. The first time I had Dr. Yael Respler, I don't know if I could tell him how many years ago. It was decades ago that you spoke on a panel in my synagogue. I was a rabbi in Seaview Jewish Center. And she is also world-renowned, written thousands of articles, a columnist in Jewish press for many, many years, and has really, I think, really changed some of what's going on in the world of psychotherapy, and particularly for Fruma psychotherapists, and particularly a woman. So I must say, tremendous accomplishments, and the fact that you're here with us, to me, is very, very heartwarming, and I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you too, Rabbi Hecht. We have a long-term relationship, and anytime I want to kvetch, I could call you, and you tell me you're right. And we have a long-term relationship, and you've made a difference in my life. And I remember, it was years ago, I was young. I didn't realize how young you were, because to me, you were Rabbi Hecht. Whoa, Rabbi Hecht, I'm going to speak with Rabbi Hecht.
Thank you.
That was the most glowing introduction I've ever heard him give, by the way, just so that you know. Yeah. So you know each other for a long time. We just met. Could you maybe tell us a little about what it is that you do and your approach?
Okay. So I would consider myself primarily, I do a lot of things, but primarily marital therapy. I do work with phobias. I have, over the years, one thing I always try to do is work on myself. So I'm going to talk about working, whatever I tell my clients to do, I do myself. So I'm always trying to train, and I'm a hypnotherapist now, and I did trauma therapy now, and I'm always trying to be a better therapist. It's something that I feel, as a frum person, we always have to work on being better. I tell my clients, you could criticize me. I'm not perfect. And that's something I feel many times therapists will do to clients. When they criticize them, they'll start analyzing them and say to them, well, you're projecting, it's your issue. But sometimes it's not your issue, it's my issue. Maybe I am wrong, and I will literally tell my clients, don't be afraid. Tell me what bothers you. And I will be honest, at this point, I have the ability to just treat from people, whatever it is. I'm United Nations. They could be Sephardi, they could be Ashkenaz, they could be modern Orthodox, could be super Hasidic from Monroe. It doesn't matter what they are, but I put my heart and soul into my work so much that I don't want to work with people. Maybe it sounds not so nice. I want to work with people that are Shomer Shabbos, basic, at least basic.
No, but there's also not only a question of appreciation, but it's easy. You understand your client and the life they're living. You're halfway there. Because sometimes when I will, in fact, help someone within my own community, I know your father, I know your grandfather, I know some of the genes, I know some of the understandings. And understanding that background gives us a tremendous advantage.
100%. I'll tell you something personal. I unfortunately lost my first husband. Can't even believe I say first husband, to COVID. I lost him in a week. It was a real tragedy. I was married almost 42 years. And he was a great husband, amazing. And suddenly he disappeared in my life. I never thought I would remarry again. Baruch Hashem, I did. And for a long time I kept it quiet, because I just couldn't believe I found another great husband. And I will tell you that I think part of what, I do agree with you, but I didn't write my dissertation on this. I looked for a therapist, and I didn't want a frum therapist. I didn't personally. Because if I get it from therapists, I know everybody. Let me look outside. Let me go. And he was excellent. I'm not saying he helped me a lot, but he didn't get me. I was trying to explain him I was making a Shea for my first husband's family. I mean, it's still my family. For one of the children, I had to spend half of the session explaining him what a Shea was. It drove me crazy. Like, I'm spending money to explain you what you should know. And I did write my dissertation on that. I wrote it on, and I will I'll try to simplify the title, Value, Congruence, and Incongruence Between Therapist and Patient in Treatment.
So go back to what Dr. Bruce asked. So what do you do and how, what do you bring different to the table of psychotherapy?
Okay, so I think one thing that therapists often do, and therapists have a bad rep because of that, is that they will, first of all, never say to a patient, you should get divorced. If they want to get divorced, let them go to a Rav, let them go to a Beis Din, let them go to court. They're not coming to a therapist, they're coming to you. Your job is to try at least your best to save that marriage. That's the first thing I never do. I don't tell them what to do. I don't tell them. Yeah. The second thing is that I also don't treat them together. And that's an interesting thing to say. Why? A client comes to me, right? They come to me as a couple. They're already, by the time they're coming to me, unfortunately today especially, they're ready, the Rav is sending them to me and says to them, go to Dr. Respler. Just go to her. Don't go to the Beis Din. Don't get a get yet. Just go to Dr. Respler. She saves marriages. I just had a client just this week that I had so much nachas because she's pregnant with number 2, and this was a client about to get divorced. So what do I do different? I don't see them together. I see them, I split the time, I put one in the waiting room, one in the office, and if they especially, neither of them want to be the first ones to be seen, because then you'll side with that one. So I see them both for the first time together, but I'll split the time and be very sensitive. That's a little bit like Aaron HaKohen, I'll be honest, not to repeat the negative. I focus on the positive, right? And I think about it for myself. Why would I want to repeat the negative? So let's say she's telling me, oh, he's this and he's that and he's the other thing. I'll say, okay, but what's good about him? She'll say, well, he does this and he does that. So I said, let's focus on that. Let's focus on what's good about him. Or he'll tell me she's this or she's that, whatever negative. So I try to focus on the positive. I'm a builder, and I practice what I preach. I try to build my own marriage and my own children, and I'm not negative. I try not to be negative. I'm not saying I'm never negative, but try not to be negative. And I'm also try to separate my clients until I feel they're safe enough to be seen together. There's a safety measure. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. I have 2 follow-up questions, actually. One, I want to go back to the issue of seeing a frum therapist. Are you recommending to all frum people that they only see frum therapists?
Yes, I really am. Mm-hmm. I'm recommending that only because it's not, I'm not saying a non-Jewish or non-frum therapist can't help you. I would never say that. It depends on the person. I got tremendous help from my non-frum therapist. He was great. But I did waste a lot of time having to explain him my community, and he would joke with me, you think I know nothing. Well, he didn't know so much. If I have to spend half a session explaining what a Shea bracha is, I did feel at that point I really needed help, and I didn't want to spend half a session explaining.
Well, as a rabbi, there are 2 issues here. One is the religious issue, but we're not even talking about that. Should I go only to a religious therapist? I think there's a situation beyond that, and that is simply understanding the nuances and the behavior, the patterns of the family, understanding the family structure. Grandparents. When you talk to Americans, you have to understand something. In the Orthodox community, particularly certain circles, you will have not only a grandparent, but a great-grandparent.
Right.
Okay? I'm a great-grandfather already. So there are Baruch Hashem. So you're talking about 4 generations of Mishagas, if you want to call it that way. So it's simply understanding the family dynamics, and that is a very, very important thing. And as I said to you before, sometimes when a person comes into me, say, listen, I know your gene. I know your father, I know your mother, I know your grandfather, I know your grandparents, and by that, you have such a great advantage where you would have to bring me up to speed on these things. And that's what I think that Dr. Respler is talking about.
I completely understand that. I'm not expressing an opinion about this, but I am going to relate a story that it's very recent. Excuse me. I was called by an Orthodox rabbi, and this Orthodox rabbi has a son who is no longer religious and decided that he is gay. He has a partner. I think he married the partner. And the conflict was that the family said that he may not, although the son is welcome at home, but that may not bring the partner. And
Very common.
okay, they went through a multitude. They saw a multitude of rabbis, and it was eating the father up, because he loves his son, he wants to see his son. And multitude of rabbis, frum therapists, and it was only when a Gentile female therapist got involved that she was able to reconcile between the two. So I completely understand the points that both of you make. You're making the same point. But it does, when I hear stories like that, it really kind of does make you wonder.
But Dr. Bruce, 2 points I want to say about that, and I think it's very important. Number one is there are plenty of rabbis that I know that could have done the same. Even though that person is living against halacha, living against our lifestyles. Number one. That's one point. The other point I want to say is you speak Hebrew. You speak Hebrew.
Yeah.
And the fact that you speak Hebrew, because you're fluent in Hebrew, don't you relate so much better if someone who comes in, an Israeli that comes in, that you're halfway there. You know the psychic of Israelis. I never lived in Israel. You did. And speak the language so well, it gives you an advantage.
Right. I speak Hebrew too.
100% agree. And again, I'm not expressing an opinion about this.
You just feel maybe we're being too narrow-minded, right? You do.
She thinks she's a mind reader. No, that's actually not true.
Not true? Okay.
No, that's actually not true.
No.
You made the point earlier, you try to examine yourself and be curious about things and never get to a point where you think you know everything. And I was just expressing that exact same sentiment. Okay?
Yeah, but your point is well taken. Every situation is different. And perhaps in this particular situation, I don't know who was involved. Maybe everyone was too narrow-minded. And what Rabbi Hecht is saying, it depends on the rabbi, right? There are rabbis that could have helped, and there are rabbis who couldn't. It's just like saying all black people are the same, or all Jews are the same. We're all different. You understand? So I think, in this particular case, this Gentile woman had a certain sensitivity that she was able to get through.
One interpretation. Another possible interpretation is that the son felt that you know what I'm about to say.
Yes.
That all the rabbis and the frum therapists
was too angry, right?
We're going to be too biased, okay,
and too judgmental. And ultimately, you can't escape Torah and halacha. Yeah. And he needed someone who he felt could be more neutral. In that situation.
Right.
But Dr. Bruce, often when I will sit with a frum kid, I said, listen, I'm going to take my rabbi hat off and put on my therapist hat, because sometimes I play therapist, which I hope you don't play rabbi ever. But I put on my therapist, and you know what? And we have a different conversation from a different angle. Mm-hmm. So I don't know exactly the story you speak of, but I can tell you other stories like that are within our community, and it's not something that we really talk about very much in our community for many different reasons, and some have criticized me for doing so. Listen, in my second book, where I write about many of the predators within our community, things that I didn't speak about 20 years ago, although I was involved in. And I would sometimes call someone like Dr. Respler and say, listen, I need some advice. There is something going on in this particular synagogue or that particular yeshiva. Yes, we didn't talk about it today. We talk about it a little bit more. But one of the things why I wrote my book and write it particularly about these predators is because to know that, listen, do not think that rabbis didn't do anything about it. We did, but we were also very discreet and very, very careful.
Everything depends on the rabbi and on the person.
One other follow-up question. It sounded to me like you have, unless I misheard you, that you walk in there with an agenda to save the marriage.
Yes. And I will tell you something that you're very perceptive. To the point, I have that rep. You're right.
Well, he's thinking maybe the marriage shouldn't be saved. But one second.
Wait, let me
that
change-
bias.
Now you're reading my mind.
Right.
Can I just answer you? Let me just answer this question.
You know, I want to hear your response.
Okay.
Actually. Yeah.
No, I think you're right. I think that to the point where if you research me well, and people do, I had someone make an appointment with me and say to me, I want you to help me through a divorce. And I'm thinking I should just tell them, forget it, go somewhere else. Because I'm not good at that. I know what I'm not good at. I don't do what I'm not good at. So, but I said, let me meet him once. Then he calls me back. He says, we're not a shidduch. And he was right. I said, you're right. And that was it. He was right. To the point that I would say the Hasidic world, not so much Lubavitch. I would say like the Williamsburg and the, they're warmer in terms of revealing. I call Lubavitch the Litvish Hasidim, You're very similar to us. But the Hasidic world, they will say, she's good, go to her, she'll save your marriage. You want to get divorced, go to this one. I'm saying, so I do have a rep, yes. And I'm upfront. I will tell people, yes, I will. A client will walk in, I'll say, listen, if it comes, you will like this, Rabbi Hecht, because this is the truth. Listen, my mother's a German Jew. We tell the truth. And she's alive still, struggling right now. And if it comes between halacha, if it comes between the law, Jewish law, and psychology, I will go with Jewish law, yes. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how much I should reveal on here because I don't want any lawsuits, but I will try. I have a license and I will do everything according to my license, but whatever I could do to protect people from getting, let's say, into the hands of where special services will take children away and, oh, look at these Hasidim, look at these Orthodox Jews, they're crazy, they're awful. They love when we mess up. They love it. This is all over. They don't put the fact that these Hasidim save each other or these Orthodox people help each other. That's not in the news. It's in the news, the guy who's going someplace he shouldn't be going, right? The guy who's doing something he shouldn't be doing. What about all the people who are doing more than they should be doing? They don't make the news, correct? The negative makes the news, not the positive. So I'm not going to disagree with you, but I'm upfront with my clients.
Okay, so two things. One is that, and this is common to both Judaism as well as psychology, what is the highest agency that humans have? It's their free choice, their free will.
Right. The chira chavshi.
So, there's also there are many different sort of approaches to couples or marital therapy that say that really the key is that where couples get in trouble is you have to wake up every day and choose your partner anew every single day. You can't just say, I married them then and that's it.
Right.
And that's common then to both Judaism as well as psychology. So this is what gives me pause when you make that comment, is that you want each member of this couple to choose, but how are they supposed to choose if you go in with that agenda that they really don't have a choice here? Or they shouldn't have a choice?
I don't tell them they don't have a choice, but I'll make it clear that I want to try to help them stay married. And if they want to not stay married, they shouldn't stay with me.
I don't know about that,
Dr.
but okay.
Bruce, you have to remember, this couple got married because they fell in love with each other. They thought they
Maybe.
can build a life together. They did live together. They invested so much. Right. You're going to say to me, they should not someone...
maybe sometimes they have a huge family, I'm telling you.
Right.
Understood. Understood.
But you have children together. You
Grandchildren.
Ergo, let's get to the end. Ergo, what? What's the point?
And therefore, the position that one will take, because I, as a rabbi, or this young lady as a doctor, as a therapist, says, listen, you're coming into my office, the first thing we're going to try is see if this can work. Because it did work once. That's why I always, when I start with people, I say, well, let's go through this. Did you, in fact, fall in? Did you, in fact, make the decision? Did you, in fact, make a commitment? And what about the commitment? Number one. Number two is, many times people say, I'm falling out of love. You're falling out of love? And how long does that last? It lasts less than falling in love. So there's responsibility that you have taken, brought children into this world. You have responsibility to your parents, to your siblings, to your family, etc. So the fact that we as professionals, either a rabbi or a doctor, says, listen, you're in my office, the first thing we're going to see if we can do is save the marriage. She didn't say she's against divorce or doesn't believe divorce. Torah says that, I thought
There's a whole
right away.
There's a whole getting in the Gemara.
Right. So there's a whole tractate of divorce. Divorce is definitely a solution for some. And for some people, they walk in, all they're doing is exchanging one set of problems for another set of problems. Mm-hmm. And how are you as a therapist helping? Oh, great. I now walked out with a new set of problems. And now I can pick a new therapist to deal with my new problem.
Well, I'll tell you something that should please both of you from both of your perspectives.
I hope you're not
in 30 years in 30 years of doing this, I will tell you that the people that I've seen that either are in the process of separation, divorce, or have gotten divorced, who suffer the most. And by the way, usually they're the ones who wanted it. Okay. But when we got down to it about what was causing them such anguish, it wasn't the fact that they were separating or disconnecting from the spouse. And another interesting point, I'll finish the sentence. It was true for Jews and non-Jews.
Right.
It was that their anguish is because they broke a vow to God.
Oh. Interesting.
That anguished them more than the separation from the actual person.
You know what? I'm saying, going through my mind is, halavai.
Yeah.
I wish that could be the reason.
Yeah.
It is not infrequently, but go ahead.
Time keeps moving. I'm sorry we have to break. We're going to definitely invite Dr. Respler back again. We want to thank you for listening to another episode of The Rabbi and the Therapist. Remember, if you have any comments, if you have any suggestions, please make sure to contact us. It's on the screen.